Thank you, Shrente from Affirmation Station Show, for collaborating with me in this video. The link for the podcast will be in the description. Let's get started. Well, I guess this is the only way for me to actually learn Logic. Now I just have to record myself singing. Okay. Alright. Here we go. I'm excited about this one. I have been delaying the inevitable to learn more about Logic Pro. And here's the thing. One of my biggest issues was that I had to record myself singing. I can hold a note, I can hold a tone. Even depending on the song, I can put some little emotion into it, spice it up. But then I will have to record it. I had to edit it myself. With collaboration with Affirmation Station is letting me use one of our audio to use it to improve my Logic Pro journey. I don't know which one I'm more excited about. You know I'm more excited about me not recording myself singing. I have already worked on this one before, but I did it all on Final Cut Pro, which kind of defeats the audio-ness of the show that I should be using audio DAWs to do audio work. And don't get me wrong, Final Cut Pro works for a point, especially when you're doing talking. It's really improved because it used some of the software of Logic Pro because they're both Apple products owned. Let me give you a snippet of how it sounds right now.
Hey, listeners, we are now in the topic section of the show, and I get to interview the wonderful Ashmita Rama.
Here is Final Cut Pro.
Hey, listeners, we are now in the topic section of the show, and I get to interview the wonderful Ashmita Rama.
What I've done with Logic. Right. I have to work on it. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And I got screen record. I do want to add something before, if I even needed to start doing this for real, and first time actually listening to it, I should have first thing first, and don't do like I did, is to listen to the podcast. So, I'm about to listen to Affirmation Station and hear a couple of some of the videos that I have on there and see how to format it. Because earlier I did send out a draft about it, and even though it was good, decent, I was close to what she wanted to use on it, but there were some things that were key that I need to do. And it kind of showed that I didn't listen to it the first time around. Now that I have learned my lesson, so what I'm going to do while I'm listening to the podcast is I'm going to take some notes so that I'm able to hear what I need to do, including like the intro and what to do on it as well. Just to get an idea of what timeline is, and probably just put a little bit of my twist onto it. I'm going to lay in bed because it is warm in here. Okay, while I was laying down and all that stuff, something in my brain really clicked onto me. Because since it's my first time ever doing a podcast edit, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And even with me recording the process, with me getting frustrated and don't know what my template is going to be like, I didn't want to have that recording of it. Even though I did have a little bit, yeah, it was terrible. But I'm going to talk about that later. But I did want to emphasize one thing that I did want to talk about is whenever you are doing collaboration with anybody and you're doing with their project, is to have a conversation with them. Yes, they can be busy. That happens all the time. Everyone's busy. I'm busy. But it's always good to have at least a 5 to 10 minutes conversation just to see how the workflow goes through. And yes, sometimes they'll give you reference of previous projects and a little bit of timeline as well up to it. But for me, it works to a point because now I have to decode of how the person is, how they do their work, how the workflow is. And normally in writing, it's not the best for me. So that's why I always push just to have a talk with them, conversation of it, and overgoing texting back and forth, because sometimes text can be misinterpreted. I.e. like the episode of Key and Peele skit. Yeah, things do that. And so I was able to chance to have a conversation and just see how the outline going to be, what needs to be improved, and all that stuff with it, instead of going back and forth. Also too, I was a little bit frustrated, not with Affirmation Station show, just with myself, and the heat gets me frustrated quickly. And it's not just like it's the bad heat. I'll say that. The bad heat gets me a little bit out of temper. It gets me out of temper. Because good heat gives me, okay, I'll be chill and all that. But if it's like gross and sticky, let me get back on topic. And it really did have to challenge me to actually think and really have to write down any text so that I wouldn't ruin any relationship work that can go through. Now let me give you the time of what things to not to do when you're doing a editing podcast. Whenever you're editing a podcast. And that is putting everything on one track. Which is the track will be very, very long, and yeah, to scrub through all of that. Yeah, it wasn't a good idea. It wasn't my best idea what I was thinking of. Instinctively. And also too, depending on whatever things that they want to do, like effects or music, you don't want to have that all in one track. It's not a good idea. Also, one bigger thing is the EQ. Because of some podcasts will have pre-recording intros and outros, you don't want that to be affected with the actual podcast content itself. And it's just going to sound displeasing to the ear and visually too while you're editing. So let me go over a few things about the track. And that is the main podcast track. And this one that I used for it was I used the narration template as a starting point. And then I went from there, added a little de-esser so that there's little and skittle, it won't be in there. Okay? A little bit more pleasing to your ears of it. And since this was a full audio and no video into it, it gave me room to do it. Now for the intro and outro track, since I didn't have to technically edit it because it's already edited audio, I basically made sure that the volume was matched. That was the only editing that I did with it so that it matches with the main podcast. Because I really did not enjoy when an intro would be extra loud and then the rest of the content be soft and quiet. It's kind of a weird pet peeve for me. And I know that Bleach 1000 Year Blood War does that in its intro where everything's loud and then everything else is quiet down. Pet peeve of mine, but yeah. And then also too with it, that I'm able to have a pinpoint placement on how I wanted to put everything in there. So that I'm able to have an accurate description, which compared to using Final Cut, it have a magnetic thing. And it sometimes be able to be inaccurate on there. I can't get accurate pinpoint of it. And the same thing goes with the sound effects and music. And also give me a way to adjust the sound effects if it was needed into the video. And doing that as well with the pinpoint accuracy movements of it and just that whole freedom, the way I'm able to just put it in there Also, it just visually looks clean for my eyes. And that's the same thing go with music too. Able to adjust the volume, accuracy, and just all clarity of it. I knew when I was going to do this editing of this podcast, I didn't want to look up any tutorials or tips whatsoever for the first time. I wanted to go purely on instinct and experimental of it, just to fulfill my mad acoustic scientist. After my mad scientist experiments was fulfilled, I did do my research and adjust whatever I need to make whenever I'm doing it, but not all the way. Here is the final version that I have submitted to Affirmation Station Show.
Hey, listeners, we are now in the topic section of the show, and I get to interview the wonderful Ashmita Rama.
I know that this wasn't going to be a perfect edit at whatsoever, but comment down below on what I could have done differently or better in the editing process, or just give me some tips and critiques of things to do better on it. With all being said and done, I would like to thank Sharente from Affirmation Station Show for allowing me to edit such a powerful episode. The link to the podcast will be in the description. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe for more music and audio content like this, and I'll see y'all next time. I gotta finish editing this. I'll be rolls and stuff. It'll be fun, sight.